have the blood of the old gods in you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Everything in Poderation, because sometimes the internet or the Justice League can be too much. I am Robert, and I am Ancient Lamentation music playing.
Bless. I am Daily, and I am Hawk Girl, who I'm pretty sure is going to join the Justice League, right? Right? Maybe.
Hi, I'm Colin, and Ancient Lamentation music playing, because it happened so goddamn much in this movie.
It's got to repeat.
That all of us should have said it.
Mm-hmm. You know that comedy rule of twos.
Yeah.
So in today's episode, we're going to talk about the Snyder cut of the Justice League. Our plan here is to talk about the things around the movie and how the internet kind of manifested it into existence. And then halfway through, we're going to start talking spoilers. So if you're invested in the movie and haven't seen it, because frankly, finding 4 hours of your time, you know, you have to, you plan
it's a
that.
Lot.
Yeah, that's not a whim.
It's a lot.
So yeah, we'll let you know when the spoilers happen. So if you do need to pause the podcast, you know, you'll get a warning. Don't worry. You'll get the
warning.
Right
now, you are safe.
Yes. So I thought first it might be a good time for us to talk about how did Snyder cut?
How did this happen?
how happened?
Why?
Yeah. So for a little bit of background, the original Justice League, the theatrical release, came out in 2017, where Zack Snyder was directing it up until a point until he had to step away due to a family emergency, which we found out later on was that his daughter tragically committed suicide, which is, my heart goes out. Like, that's one of the worst things a parent can go through, and totally understand why you would step away from a movie to, have a moment.
Step away, dude. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, realistically, it's kind of surprising that he was even willing to come back. I mean, that's because, you know what I'm saying? That happens while you're filming, and next thing you know, you're just like, everything you associate with that movie is just with that event happening. So kudos.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was really rad, though, at the end of this movie, the Snyder cut, he did dedicate it to his daughter, which, I think that's really cool. But for the 2017 cut, we got good old Joss Whedon to come in and push it to the finish line.
Could they not find anyone else?
He did the
was
Avengers.
No one else
though.
willing? Right. So this is a totally identical superhero team up movie. So that's why they called him in, because it's totally the same vibe, the same jokes, the same heroes. So he could handle it.
Yeah, I mean, Superman is Iron Man. He's got a drinking problem. He has a mechanical heart. Same character.
Billionaire, genius, playboy, the philanthropist.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And
then remember at the end of Man of Steel, Clark Kent did a little press conference and then was just like, I am Superman.
Well,
and then no one believed
King.
him until he took off the glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that all happened.
Yeah.
It could have happened. There could be another cut, the Whedon cut, that we don't know about. Give us the Whedon cut.
God,
said
please
no one ever.
Just let this fucking movie die already, please.
Yeah, I mean, we did get the Whedon cut. That was a 2017 cut, right? And remember back then, the problems around Whedon weren't as prominent or spoken about, right?
True.
People didn't know. People were more excited because it's like, oh yes, the guy who did a successful Marvel movie of team ups is gonna come in and fix the DC movie of team ups. And then it was kind of bad. He took 4 hours, turned it into 2.5 hours, and added funny jokes like the lasso scene and the Flash landing on top of Wonder Woman's boobs, because that's funny.
Oh,
that's comedy.
That's anime.
Absolute
That's an
comedy.
anime trope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He watches anime. I think we know this.
Joss Whedon.
I get
Joss
the
Whedon.
weeb vibe from Whedon. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think we should also say that too. So you guys have both seen the Joss Whedon cut, the original version of the movie. I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So
He's been saved.
I will say up front that this podcast I will be playing. I don't know. I guess the straight man, or what the layman who isn't invested in the whole superhero thing. So, yeah, I'll be coming at this more of the standpoint of like as a movie fan rather than like I'm all in on the superhero thing. So I apologize in advance if I'm going to be a little bit more yucking ya yum, not so up on some of the things that happen in this movie, but I'll tell you why.
Because yeah, Daly and I have both seen the theatrical release. I was there day one, like I guess night one of it. Yeah, I mean, because here's the thing, in terms of comics, I do like DC more than Marvel, just generally. But the movies for DC are often very bad or mediocre. You know, I mean, Marvel movies got to a point where they were a little formulaic, but the formula was still fun, right? Like you went to the movie and you're like, this was fun. DC movies didn't quite have that.
Yeah, you didn't leave it like, I want to watch that again. It's like you're sitting in it afterward, like, this is sinking in.
This overwhelming sense of dread. And Man of Steel.
It's dread, absolutely. It's dread, and then everything looks, after you leave the theater, it looks oversaturated and too bright.
Because everything is so dark in a Snyder film, both literally and figuratively, I guess. But since the Justice League movie originally came out, there was a lot of talk of the hashtag Snyder Cut. Everyone knew that the Snyder Cut was going to be way better, and that started trending on Twitter. Fans were begging, pleading, and demanding for it. Co-stars, co-workers of Snyder, right, were tweeting about it. Ray Fisher was really adamant about it. Gal Gadot was really adamant about it, right? Like, they were like, the movie that came out in the theater is not what we wanted it to be, or what we expected it to be. So Twitter did its magic. The internet people did its magic. And then HBO Max came in and was like, hey, Zack, we have $70 million. Would you like it? And he said, yes, please, because I need 60 million of that to get Jared Leto to do a cameo for 5 minutes, and then 10 million of it for more special effects.
Which that did not stretch as far as I think anyone thought it was going to. So
no, sure didn't.
Yeah. There's definitely an interesting, and I'm when we'll get into like the spoiler territory, I'm very interested in hearing Colin, who hasn't seen the original, like having that context to see like having the forgiveness, I guess, or the suspension of disbelief for certain scenes that you know were reshoots or were added in later that just don't live up to the rest of the film in terms of like CGI or clarity. And just having, because I think if this just came out and you just see it without any of the background information about like, this is a different cut, this is the movie previously was kind of bombed on, etc., would it still stand up as like, wow, that was a very great 4-hour film?
Yes.
So I would just like to give a shout out to our friend Adam from the UK, because I had tweeted out after seeing the Snyder Cut that I was like, you know, I'm no big superhero movie fan. It was something to the effect of like, I'm no big superhero movie fan, but I just finished the Snyder Cut and oof, like if that was that, then I can't imagine how bad the original was. And Adam was like, well, like you should watch the Joss Whedon version. It's only about 2 hours, so you can like, you know, really compare it. And I'm just like, I tweeted back at him the gif from Endgame where it's Captain America saying, no, I don't think I will.
I think you mean Joe Biden saying that.
Yeah, Joe Biden.
Right.
Because I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I'm going to be frank right now. I, for the most part, did not enjoy the Snyder Cut, like at all. And like, I'm not going to put myself through 2 hours more of that, especially a worse version of a movie that I didn't enjoy in the first place. So, yeah, I'm sorry, Adam. I apologize, but that's just where I'm coming from. Like, not really
His
that
eyes
invested.
will forever remain clean.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm curious, Daly, what's your off the cuff, no spoilers take, is Snyder Cut good or
Yee.
bad?
Yee.
Is good.
Is good. It felt like having read a draft of something and then being like, you got to work on this, and then them coming back and being like, I really put work into this, and it shows, and that's very satisfying. All the places where it previously didn't connect came together much more cleanly, and from a storytelling perspective, that was super satisfying.
Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed it too. Keep in mind, I'm biased. Again, big DC fan, right? But I did say before I watched it, I was telling a lot of my friends, you know, when I was talking about like, oh, I've got to watch a 4-hour dumb movie to talk about it for another. Let's be honest, 8 hours. This is going to be an 8-hour podcast, obviously.
Yeah, strap in, y'all.
Yeah. But I said the only people who will think Justice League Snyder Cut is good are the people who wanted Justice League theatrical cut to be good. I think you need to have been walking in with that hope to like it.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a little bit proven slightly wrong in that a lot of the reviews I'm seeing are like, okay, this is actually genuinely very, very good. But I think from an upfront cost, no one is going to pay 4 hours of their life unless they're already invested in wanting Justice League, the movie, to be something they can be proud of or enjoy and be happy about. And I think our sample size of 3, which scientifically is infallible,
Yes.
is proving that, because Daly and I both saw the original, saw its flaws, then we saw the Snyder Cut, walked away generally positive. Colin did not see it, walked away asleep. He didn't walk away.
No, Robert can attest to this. There was a point in the movie where I was literally dozing.
Did you doze off?
Yeah, part of it was alcohol was consumed.
Yeah, we tried to make it a drinking game.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Which I'm wondering because
depending.
And by the way, there is a recording of us watching this movie, an audio only recording of us, because Robert just put his tape recorder on the table and just let it eat while we watched the movie. And so I don't know if he's going to intersplice like parts of that or like if any of it's like worthy of listening to, but yeah, that exists. And I'm sure there's a part of it where you just might hear a little bit of snoring. But I want to say though, that even though I didn't enjoy this movie, I'm not tone deaf to the fact that DC fans like saw the original movie, were like, what the fuck was that? And really wanted a win with the Snyder Cut. You know, they wanted this to come out. They wanted it, and it improved upon the movie that they wanted to be good. And I can applaud that. I can respect that. I get that. You got to take your wins where you can get them. I'm just saying I'm coming at this from a general fan of movies that
Just
to
as
me,
a film.
yeah, as a movie in and of itself, was it good? To me, it wasn't. Okay. Like it just wasn't good, and for reasons that we'll get into.
And you know, part of me also wonders with the reviews, right? It's a 4-hour movie, right? Like that's a lot. And if you're gonna nitpick, I mean, if you nitpick like a 2-hour movie, you know, you can kind of get through that. But a 4-hour, you know, like there's so much that I wonder if part of it is just like, I don't want to think about the things that bothered me because I have to go through a lot of it across 4 hours of my brain. So let me just like it. And then I don't have to think about it anymore.
I just want to like put it in the like bin in my head and not have to think about it again.
Yeah. Well, because the question I want to pose to you two, right, is that, you know, we've talked about how this movie wouldn't exist without the internet and Twitter being like, make it exist, please. But let's pretend all that was aside, right? Like, let's say in 2017, Snyder had his original vision fulfilled and it was a 4-hour movie. Do you think that would have even come out in theaters?
Yeah.
No, they would. I mean, they would have cut it back. They would have cut the runtime.
Or I think maybe they would make a really clumsy split, as many movies have done, to their detriment, I think, especially if we're talking about, I think, and it's going to sound weird, I think the one that did it right was Twilight, the last Twilight movie.
Interesting.
Oh, Breaking Dawn Part 1, Part 2.
Breaking Bad.
Yeah, Breaking Benjamin, yes, that the movie.
And then
rather than
quickly
the band.
followed by the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2. Or was that before? I think that was one that set the stage
so
for that, wasn't
I
it?
think if they would have split it in two, it would have gone the route of Deathly Hallows in that we're all so invested in a series like this that we're going to see both movies, but the first film is 100% just building up to the second one. And that's the way that this film was structured. If it had been split, down the middle between the parts, it would have just been build up, build up, build up, build up, build up. And then like, here's the film that you needed.
Yeah.
That all the exposition and dialogue was leading up to.
Yeah.
And that would have sucked.
I was just going to say that, like, logistically, for like the way movie theaters work, having a 4-hour movie would just be a logistical nightmare, because you can only show that movie so many times. And like, you're going to have to take up 2 theaters if you're going to want to get enough showings to make, recoup your investment in this movie. And so that's just going to cost the studio a lot more money. So they would probably have told Snyder to cut it by at least a half an hour, probably maybe a full hour. So I think that's how it realistically would have went, unless they did go the route of splitting it into 2 movies.
Yeah, and I agree with you there, Colin. I think there's no way they would put a 4-hour movie in theaters nowadays, especially if it's like a superhero movie, because superhero movies are made to be mass consumed, like get as many people in there as possible, rotate as many times as you can. And I agree with you too, Daly, that splitting it in half would have been bad. Because if you compare it to Marvel's Avengers, right, like the Infinity War and Endgame, that could have technically been a 5.5-hour movie or whatever it is, 6-hour movie, right? But when you split it, like at least Infinity War had, like it had a climax, right? Like there was an ending to it. It didn't feel unfinished.
It had its own plot.
Right.
And then the overarching plot was continued in the next movie.
Exactly. Whereas here, it would have felt very unfinished, or just like you're leaving me hanging, right?
Yeah.
So I think, where we are now in this world where there are a ton of streaming services, if you follow tech even a little bit, you probably noticed everyone and their fucking grandma is getting into streaming. Frasier's coming back for streaming,
Jesus.
It's kind of stupid how many streaming services there are. But I do think that it's providing the avenue for these 4-hour epic movies that wouldn't see the light of day in a theater anymore. Like, look at The Irishman. That had a very indie theatrical release, right? Like, none of the really big theaters really carried it a lot. But Netflix then came out with it, and that's when it blew up, Yeah,
and it should be noted too that was pre-COVID, even The Irishman.
Yeah.
So like now we have all this stuff happening because of the pandemic. And so again, much like what we talked about with our teleworking episode, this change in how we consume media is only being expedited.
We weren't even stuck inside. We chose to be inside with The Irishman. But
yeah, exactly.
It's weird how it's actually kind of like coming back around, because I mean, there are like old Hollywood films like Lawrence of Arabia and Ben-Hur that are these like 3.5-hour epics,
right?
That are huge, long stories. But I mean, they had the theatrical releases and weren't available in the home for many, many years because of the technology at the time. And people were willing to sit down and do that. I think Justice League warrants that same runtime, same kind of treatment, because like Ben-Hur and Lawrence of Arabia, it's an epic. It's a very large story of a whole bunch of stuff happening, a lot of stuff going on. It's not just even the one, title character. It's the fate of the known world at the time. Yeah.
And I think that it's interesting to see that now it's all coming back while the internet is pushing things forward, right? Like, I think this is one of the few times you can think of where the internet is radically changing things, but in some ways it's changing it to be back to the way it was, right?
Yeah. It's like, I remember having a conversation once with someone about like, what are we going to do with like our tiny attention spans? Like, since Vine made anything longer than 6 seconds seem long, and yet Quibi failed when they were like, we're gonna capitalize on that, on these very short but well done productions. And it's like, no, we want, to binge the series. We're okay with having much longer form stories.
Yeah, well, I mean, what we're doing right now is already the antithesis to that. Podcasts are fucking massive. People
Yes.
watch hours-long video essays on YouTube about
Listen
their
to us
favorite.
for hours.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I consume podcasts like it's not too infrequent that I consume 3-hour podcasts like a day, 2-hour long at least, you know? So there is a need and a want for long form content out there. People like nuance and conversation.
And it's interesting because I've seen this point being made on Twitter and a bunch of people with the discourse TM, right? Saying, I don't want to watch a 4-hour movie, but put like an 8-episode, 1 hour a piece thing on Netflix and I'll binge it in one day, right?
Yep.
As if they're equivalent. I get the joke you're making. It's very funny. Haha. It's not equivalent at all. Because you could break up the Snyder Cut into 6 episodes, right? I mean, they were considering making it a miniseries, right? The movie itself literally has black cards and then it says part 1. And I laughed because I didn't expect it. It's very funny. But if they really did that and released each part separately as episodes, pacing wise, I don't think it would do as well, right? Because with TV shows, you have to pace them the right way in that it should still be enjoyable to watch if you watch 1 episode a week, like WandaVision, for example, or if you binged it all at once, right? Whereas Snyder Cut, I don't think it was paced out in a way where you could watch like each part a day and they would all be equally satisfying.
Yeah. It's
No,
meant to be a
definitely
movie.
Yeah.
He's a filmmaker, not a show
Runner.
waker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Runner? Does he run? Zack Snyder, send us your workout routine.
He's probably ran once, right?
Also, should we present this podcast in 4x3 to preserve our creative vision?
Man, I was going to make a joke about how my tape recording of us watching it was recorded in 4x3.
So originally, we were gonna watch it on our nice big flat screen television, and then we wound up watching it on an iPad, and it worked perfectly with that formatting. So I can't complain.
Yeah, I don't really care that much. 4x3, 16:9, whatever. Like, it's a movie, and I can still watch it. It's still a window into the universe. So.
Right.
Yeah, fuck it.
Are we going to start watching like Quibi style, like vertical phone filmed movies on our big screen TVs now?
Maybe.
That's how I watch TikToks.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Did you get a special TV stand that rotates your TV 90 degrees?
Oh, my God.
Is that the future?
That's the future.
That might be the future.
Question mark, question mark, question mark. Call us, Samsung.
Yeah. But I will say that I could, like, before we even get into any sort of anything to do with the story, I could tell you right off the bat my issues with the movie have to do with basically 3 main things: CG, slow motion, ancient lamentation music.
Okay, so 2 out of 3 of those are just hallmarks of Zack Snyder. So I just think you don't like Zack Snyder films.
See, I liked 300 back in the day anyway.
But there was so much slow-mo. And probably ancient lamentation music. Actually,
there was definitely ancient lamentation music.
There was a lot.
Except
but it made sense because it was
modern
Sparta.
lamentation music because it was Sparta back in the day. So you don't like ancient. I don't know what point I'm trying to make.
But the CG in this movie is excessive. It is excessive.
Yes.
And the thing is, when it is there, it doesn't look good. Like, at all. And you can tell that nothing was grounded in reality when it came to the way it was animated. Like, it looked like Wonder Woman was hitting fucking, like, I think Critical said it best, as like helium balloons.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, yeah, it kind of does. She's just tapping them and they're going flying goodbye out of the park. I mean, that pretty much sums it up. I mean, and a lot of shots. There was a lot of shots too where you didn't need to use CG for that, guys.
As I'd say, so you said that. You used the word excessive.
Yeah.
In terms of like, you didn't need to do that. You didn't. There was times where practical effects or no effects at all could have been.
Yeah, like
a stand-in.
Like, for instance, there were scenes where, like, Lois Lane, for instance, was like standing with it, like the background was like the city or whatever. It's like, yeah, I can understand that you're going to green screen that, but it's like that, even that looks fake. I don't know if it's because of the color grading or the lighting choices, but to me, it just does. She does not look present in that space. You know what I'm saying? And that's the issue.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine it's pretty tough to get all of that together, right? I mean, I've seen a few like behind the scenes footage of like the Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, and it seems like the amount of work it takes to make that look as good as it does is nuts, right? Probably costs more than $70 million worth of man hours. So I don't know. I can't fault it too hard. You know, it's just is what it is.
Yeah, I can respect that, but you know, it's always been Marvel versus DC, right? And coming off of like Avengers and then going to this, which is supposed to be the DC equivalent of the Avengers, right? It's pretty jarring, both from like an effect standpoint, a story standpoint, and you know, just the characters and how they're filled out. Like they just did a lot more movies on the Marvel end of things. They had a lot more buildup. They had a lot of things on the Marvel side compared to DC. You know, they had a lot of things working against it on the DC side.
I was about to say, do you think then it was kind of primed for failure when you only have you have $2 million budget to finish a multi-$100 million project? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I know. And a lot of it was like the odds are stacked against them. And I do acknowledge that. I do think, that there's some reliance on like the goodwill of the fans. It's like, you like this, you're going to forgive us for not delivering 100%, but at least this time it's 75% of what you want versus a stinky pile of 25% Whedon. I don't know. Right. Well, and it just kind of feels like, I don't know if that was the idea, but like the showrunners on the DC side, like looking at what Marvel's doing and be like, yeah, we could try to do that, but then just do like a ham-fisted version where we're going to give you like 3 or 4 movies and then just kind of throw you into the Avengers end of things without any sort of like build up. You know, it was Batman v Superman, and I will acknowledge also I have not seen Batman v Superman, but I have seen Man of Steel, I have seen Aquaman, and I have seen Wonder Woman, the first one. And so I at least have some iota of like what they're going for here. And it just doesn't, like, Wonder Woman was pretty solid. Like, that was probably the most solid out of all of them. But like, they're just not building a strong foundation for this in the first place. They're not setting themselves up well.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're kind of getting to the point now where it's hard for us to talk about it without spoiling things. So I think it's a good time for us to start getting into the spoilers. So we're going to take a little musical break here. A little bit of ancient lamentation music. So on the other end of the music, it will be spoiler territory. So you'll have a little bit of time. And we're also going to do a little bit of housekeeping, read an email from Adam over in the UK about his thoughts on this Justice League cut. So we'll see you on the other side. All right, and we are back with some quick housekeeping. So first we have a little email from our good friend in the UK, Adam. So the thoughts that he has for us, let's see here. After seeing Batman v Superman in a cinema, it made me hate my life. I get it. So for the Justice League, I watched it through other means, if you know what I'm getting at. I get it. You talked to your good friend Martha and asked her to give you a cut of the movie.
How do you know that name?
Why do you know that name? The original was a 2-hour mishmash of Snyder grimdark and Whedon gags, constantly fighting with each other, so the final film turned out to be a complete mess. So it shocks me to say that the Snyder version is actually better. It's egregiously long, but tells a mostly coherent story. Having watched both, you can tell why Ray Fisher was the most outspoken and pissed off. A lot of the stuff with his father, backstory of his mother, him learning his super hacking abilities were all left on the cutting room floor. Basically, his entire presence in the original cut was him just being reduced to sad robot boy. Same with the Flash, whose use of his powers to save Iris from the car crash were also gone completely. So those are the positives. The negatives are all the usual Snyder tropes. The fact that this opened with a slow motion shot that went on for about 10 minutes or longer was hilarious. Hello, Colin. Then the slow motion dramatic shot of Lois Lane putting down a cup of coffee on a police barrier had me howling with laughter. Then there's the ultra violence. Wonder Woman casually murdering a terrorist, complete with blood splat, was bizarre. Then a few seconds later, she gives a heartfelt talk with one of the schoolgirls while a man's brains bleeds out on the floor next to her.
Yeah, and don't worry, guys. We're gonna have an empowerment talk.
Yeah,
Dude, it's just fucking.
What you don't know
all over
is
the
that
wall.
little girl is actually like a sociopath, is going to become a serial killer, and she's like, I want to be like you when I grow up.
And I have to, like, and this isn't Adam saying this, I have to say, right, just to flesh out that scene a little more, because we've all seen it now at this point, it's Wonder Woman comes in, beats the blood out of a bunch of people, and then
after an awkward dodging and like blocking scene that was very CG and poorly animated. It was weird.
Yeah, and then she grabs a bomb that was going to blow up the building and throws it into the sky to save everyone from the bomb. And then she lands, gives this little girl a heartfelt, like, you can do it too, you can be your own hero speech, and then turns around and blows up the building with her own bracelets to hurt one more man. And we don't see his body either, which you can only assume he's like dead.
His hat. We see his hat. That's important. I will say that entire, like, the terrorists that just want to cause terror, that whole scene, while dumb, much better than the first time around where we had no context whatsoever. And it was like, I guess Wonder Woman was there and she saved some kids, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess.
I agree. But and then Adam goes through with a list of a few things that were very different in the original film compared to this the full cut, the maximum cut, the ultimate cut of the Snyder movie. But thank you for your thoughts, Adam. We appreciate it. And now let's dive in with our thoughts on the movie. Spoilers abound.
Ancient Lamentation music abounds.
Ancient Lamentation music everywhere. Man, it's kind of hard to know where to start with this, right? Because there's just so much. But 6 parts plus an epilogue. Overall, for me, I think the marketing kind of leads you up to be disappointed in the movie.
Can I say it? Say it?
You can say it. You
he
get
doesn't
one
say
ticket.
the thing. He doesn't say we live in a society. I've never felt more betrayed in my life.
And I love that
The Joker
moment
doesn't say
is Zack Snyder. He very clearly knows the meme. I was like, we're going to get the meme in front of the people and then bait and switch them.
It was, but here's the thing though, is the fact that he got Jared Leto playing the Joker to say that is
it was Leto's idea.
It was so fucking believable that Jared Leto of all people would be the one saying that.
We live in a society.
I totally believe that Leto would be like unironically like, yeah, we live in a society.
Oh my
like,
god.
Be into that, like, oh, like Joker knows best.
But guys, like
weird
the
meme.
trade-off was we got like one of the edgiest Batman lines of all time. Make no mistake, I will fucking kill you.
Yeah.
And I'll do it slowly.
Just like I promised Harley Quinn.
How'd y'all feel about the swearing in our good Christian cinema?
It was fine. Honestly, as someone who, much like every other comic book fan, I'm a big fan of the Batman Joker rivalry, I guess you might call it. But I love it more in its like almost homoerotic vibes, because like they both love each other, but they can't kill each other because they love each other, but refuse to tell each other they love each other. But
like
some
the Lego movie where that tension is there.
Yeah, but sometimes Joker is aware that they love each other and is trying to get Batman to admit it. And I love those moments a lot. And there was a lot of that here where Jared Leto, he didn't say we live in a society, but he did say who else is going to give you a reach around, which is very like, yeah, all right, I'll take that.
I was, taken aback for a minute. I was like, all right, we're in the nightmare sequence.
He's just kind of like,
No.
he kind of just had this like,
Yeah, those are pretty good.
He's got a point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man. So I don't know. I kind of dug it, but then there's also that implication of this is clearly setting up a sequel that as we know now, we're probably never going to get it. At least not from the Snyderverse.
Right. Yeah.
And then Batman wakes up, and then he walks out into the terrace of his bajillion-dollar home. He's just like, and then Martian Manhunter happens, and he's like, "Hey, I'm Martian Manhunter," and Batman's like, "Yeah, okay, thanks, bud. I'm gonna go back to bed now."
Genuine question. I don't understand why Martian Manhunter was Martha momentarily in order to convince Lois to reintroduce herself into society after Clark's death.
Okay, because lateral thinking. You gotta think like Zack Snyder. You know.
Can I? I don't know if I can do that, Robert.
Is he supposed to be omniscient? Like
Martian Manhunter?
Yeah.
No, his powers are shape-shifting, psychokinesis, telekinesis, super strength, fly. He's kind of like an off Superman, but literally an alien.
Yeah, I know nothing about this character other than when I watched the Justice League cartoon when I was a kid. So.
Oh, he's weak to fire.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Okay.
But no, so he as Martha encourages Lois to go to work so that way she can be at work. So that way when Clark comes to life, she will be there to say, "Hey, Clark, it me, Lois."
Okay. So it's like an omniscient knows stuff is going to go down. Counterpoint, we're all very connected in this world. She could still just leave her apartment.
For sure.
And it's also greet. It was, I don't know. That just was weird to me.
It's super fan service.
And I also love that they didn't put in the conversation where Lois was just like, "Hey, but like, didn't I just see you back in Gotham?" You know, when she shows up at the farmhouse randomly when Clark and Lois are there, because Clark like flew Lois all the way from Gotham to the farmhouse in Kansas. And then Martha just shows up. Like, there was no scene where Lois was just like, "What? But she just, yeah, because Martha just knew to fly out there, like, not via Superman, via plane, you know, Superman Airlines.
Yeah, Superman Air, yeah. I mean, yeah, you have to imagine
what he could do.
That conversation later, right? Like, "Oh, hey, Martha, thanks for talking me out of my funk. The fuck you talking about?
Like,
what?
Oh,
yeah.
That's how it happens.
Can we also talk about how, you know, if you've seen other DC things, like, or if you've seen the animated Justice League, you know about Martian Manhunter, right? Like, you as the fan, outside of the fiction of the Snyderverse, know about Martian Manhunter and how he's a good guy and et cetera, et cetera. Batman, who has never met this green alien with red eyes, he just shows up and then is like, "Hey, I can help you out. Oh, my name? I'm Alien Human Killer. I'm Spaceman Human Destroyer."
Because I was trying to remember, because I've also watched the animated series. I can't remember like his human name. His what is it?
His human name is John Johns.
Fuck. Okay. But how much better would that have been if he just said, "Some call me John Johns"?
Yeah, that would have been better.
Just flown away.
Yeah, Martian Man, like, if
Is
that
it John
fucking
Jones
dialogue
or John
actually made
Jones?
sense, Batman should have been like, "Excuse me? You want to run that by me again, motherfucker?"
Right?
But the thing is that I don't think that was even Batman, or at least I don't know if that was Ben Affleck standing there on that lakefront property. He looked pretty strange to me.
Yeah.
Like a deep fake of Ben Affleck.
I could see it.
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me because Ben Affleck so okay, again, haven't seen Batman v Superman, but Ben Affleck looks so fucking nonplussed in every scene in this entire goddamn movie. It's like, dude, I'm just here for a paycheck. I'm just like, I don't want to be here. And I will also say that the script kind of did him like dirty. There was nothing really great with Batman in pretty much this entire movie. My favorite line from Batman the whole movie was basically like, "Hey, so what's your superpower? I'm super rich."
Okay. Okay, actually, I like that aspect of it because we do have like Batman in our heads as like this great hero among men. Among men. We're not talking about humankind anymore. That's why, you know, Justice League is an epic. It's like a Greek epic where you're talking to Wonder Woman, who's literally descended from the old gods, and Aquaman, who's the heir to Atlantis, and Cyborg, who is in the like connected to the mother boxes and therefore has a whole bunch of that power, can do anything at a, you know, on his whim. It's like where the power is scaled up so much that being really rich only gets you so far now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's even implied, right? Like, because he and Alfred, they worked on the Nightmare, they worked on the flying bat machine, and both of those were easily overwritten and fixed by Cyborg, who just like did it with a snap of his finger, right?
Yep.
Like Cyborg was like, "Oh, she wants to fly. I'm gonna make her fly," and then he just does it. And then the Nightmare, when it gets beaten up by Steppenwolf, Cyborg's like, "I'm just gonna jack in and
I'll fix it. I got this.
Yeah.
It was, I did, Zack and I were making fun of, not Zack Snyder, Zack, boyfriend Zack, we're making fun
first
of
name
every...
boyfriend, last name Zack.
Yes. We were making fun of all of Batman's gear is like single use in this movie. Mm-hmm. Like you have this amazing piece of technology that you've been working on for, you know, months and months that I'm sure the military would love to get their hands on. And it's like, we got to use it for about 5 minutes before everything exploded and parademons got in or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, eventually, I know Batman's, like, really rich, but with the amount of shit he buys, like, eventually you gotta be hemorrhaging money, right? Like, I don't know.
Wayne Enterprises.
I mean, when you're that
I'm
rich.
trying to dissect
we
the
got
comic book
Bezos
character.
money, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. All I'm saying is Ben Affleck, like, depressed Affleck memes happen for a reason.
So with this 4-hour runtime, right? Like, it's exhausting. You know, I enjoyed it, but was definitely like, I need a break throughout the movie. But something that, so one of my original problems with the Whedon cut was this felt like the origin stories for Cyborg, Flash, and Aquaman all jammed into one, and a revival story for Superman, and they're fighting the big bad, right? Like it's a lot of stories that didn't get time to breathe.
It's a lot.
This movie, I think it's a little better, right? Because there's more time for everything to breathe. But it still feels a little bit like Aquaman and Flash were a little shafted. In terms of, I feel like we don't get as much of their stories as we could. It'd almost be like they should have made movies of those two before they came out. Obviously, Aquaman came out later, but we still don't have a Flash movie. But I will say this movie feels like the Cyborg origin movie, the origin story movie.
Yeah.
Yes. He's more than just a weird Pinocchio allegory. He's like got a plot, and there's some resolution, especially with his relationship with his father. I mean, that whole last part was named after, you know, a father twice over. And it was actually really touching. I really liked the Cyborg story because it better communicated A, what his powers are, and B, what a burden that would be on a fucking teenager. He's a teenager. That's weird.
It is weird. Yeah, I mean, obviously I haven't seen the original, but I mean, I'm glad they gave him backstory. I mean, I still don't completely understand how his powers are supposed to work. It's kind of like, I don't know, it seemed kind of vague to me. Maybe I missed something.
I mean, he's just a walking supercomputer that can metamorphosis his robot body.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't know. The thing about Cyborg is like, yeah, I liked his backstory, and he was like a relatively cool character after he kind of chilled out. But like, it's really hard for me to get over Cyborg's design, if I'm being frank. Like, it was really like anytime Cyborg was on screen, it was super distracting to me, like how CG he was. And it was like one of those things where it's like, it looked like instead of having him wearing a mocap suit or something that they can like easily paint on, they instead opted for him to like not wear anything, and they just kind of painted him on in every scene, and it almost looked like it was struggling to track him as he moved sometimes, like the CG. So it was just incredibly jarring sometimes in the movie. About his backstory, like the whole like star football player, that was cool. And like how, you know, he got in an accident, and his mom was like trying to apologize for his dad being absent, and like the conflict with his dad was like all really cool, and it made for like an interesting backstory, especially where there was none. I mean, that's one way to do it. And it really sucks that his dad's story ends with him basically causing the mother box to be a like putting a GPS tracker on the mother box, and then he dies.
Yeah.
That was one of the moments where the I guess excessiveness of the violence anyway kind of shocked me. Like I literally saw the man's pelvis still standing while the rest of him wasn't, and then fall into dust. There's just some points where it's like, okay, like you can do that, but should you?
Yeah, and honestly, I think Cyber, if I had a criticism about his backstory, it's that it almost feels like suffering porn. Like it almost is like, okay, his mom dies, he gets in a car wreck, he's completely fucked up, and then his dad just like gets blown up, and it's like, wow, I mean, Jesus Christ, I mean, fuck this kid, I guess.
And I think what bothers me about it, especially with the dad, right? Because in the OG cut, the dad is alive at the end. Remember that? He was alive.
Oh.
In this cut, he's dead. And I think there is some power to a story that's like, even with the most traumatic life, you can find power in it, because humans are resilient. Like, we adapt and we survive, as Bear Grylls would say. Obviously, it's very excessive in this movie, but I can't help but keep thinking, Batman, satellites, imagery, Steppenwolf has a big red dome over a whole town. How would Batman have not seen? Like, he can track the heat.
Six satellites.
Yeah, he even says in the movie, I have 6 satellites. So how could he have not? Or Alfred, maybe, who's like back at home playing League of Legends or whatever. How come he couldn't see on one of the satellites, hey, Master Bruce, there's a big red fuck in Russia. Can you go check that out, maybe?
It's literally Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it was like they needed to make up a reason for him to die to like make Cyborg feel as a character, right? Like to feel sympathetic towards him. So he goes back and listens to the recording, blah, blah, blah. And then they tried to make it the payoff for like this scene where like actually the thing that his dad says on the tape is like this prescient speech that they play over the end of the movie. And that does not feel fucking earned at all, because I didn't care about his dad all that. Like the reason why his dad was there was to make Cyborg a more sympathetic character and push a couple of plot points forward. Like his dad as a character alone, I did not care about.
Yeah.
oh,
You know what I'm saying? So to make him the person that's like, I'm going to give this big heart-filled speech at the end of this movie, where, to be fair, we didn't fight Darkseid at the end of this movie, or like we have an idea of like what's maybe going to happen. Like it tried to make us feel like, oh man, like it's given, you know, we're supposed to have like chills right now because he's giving this big heart-filled speech about power and responsibility or whatever, something that Spider-Man's uncle probably said. And it's just not, it just doesn't hit the way they think it does.
Yeah. And, you know, I think it's at least better than the theatrical cut. That's what and I feel like I'm saying that a lot, right? And I feel like that's what's fueling I'm okay with the Snyder cut, right? Because the theatrical cut, as our friend Adam said, Cyborg is just sad robot boy who's sad. Like, at least in this movie, I believe that he's sad. You know, like, I've seen all of the things that led up to him being moody and, you know, broody and angry sad, right? And it feels a little more earned. And I keep thinking back to the Whedon cut, where you remember the scene at the end. Well, it's like 20 minutes before the end of the fucking Snyder cut, but at the end, after they beat Steppenwolf, and then all of the Justice League members are standing up on top of that that wreckage, and there's like the heroic triumphant music, and it's like, oh yeah, the Justice League, they're here, right?
They're all staring passionately at the back of this cargo plane that they're about to jump into. And it's like,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, no. It's at the very end, right? Where there's like, they've conquered the bad, right?
Yeah, they're standing at the top of the silo. They're literally just waiting for the plane to come and pick them up.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they do a panning shot of a close up of all of their faces. And then I remember in the original cut, there's a hard cut to Cyborg. And then Cyborg just says, "Booyah." And it's
Fuck.
yeah. And that was so like, remember the Teen Titans? You remember that?
Remember he would say booyah?
Yeah.
And eat pizza?
And that super didn't feel earned because Cyborg was barely a character in the original. And I can totally understand why Ray Fisher has a few issues with Joss Whedon, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
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 Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Pending legal action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I got it, like, there was still some of those Whedon-esque lines, like "my man" and like stuff like that, but it did again feel, I guess, a little more earned, like the banter between certain characters, like Barry and Cyborg had a little bit of a rapport, and so did everyone with Aquaman, who wasn't just like the dude. He wasn't as much of a dude bro as he was previously, or in the Aquaman film. I felt like he had some levity behind it, especially because it was weirdly long, and the whole sniffing the sweater thing put me off.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
That
but
scene was
before,
like, why the
okay.
fuck was it there? Why
before
was it
the
there?
sweater sniff, listen, before the sweater sniff, loved it, because it's like, this is their like folk god that comes on the king tide, like make sure that their village can still sustain itself, and then mysteriously leaves into the freezing cold water. That's magical.
Wherever he goes with a shirt on. Anyway, but they start singing it up like, what's happening?
I thought the singing was cool. Like, I liked it. I thought it was because it was like, you know, their local folk god coming in, and there's like some weird magic to that. Whereas in the Whedon cut, I'm pretty sure it was he dives into the water and then he does the like not swimming torpedoing, and there's like a rock song.
Yeah, like
and
Blood
it's
Rock.
like, yeah,
It's White
versus
Stripes.
like just disappearing into the water.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that is very Snyder, because Zack Snyder has a god complex. Well, he doesn't have a god complex. He likes creating movies with characters that
About
have god
gods.
complexes. Because Superman is literally treated as a god in the Snyderverse, right? Like the fall of God when he dies. And then there, in that moment, Aquaman's being treated like a god. Wonder Woman is sort of treated like a god as well, or a goddess, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. I didn't actually make that connection of like Aquaman is treated as this hero god of that town. And I actually think that's interesting.
Okay, fair, but sniffing the sweater.
But
I'm not gonna let that go. I'm not gonna let that go.
Same, but
Listen,
That might have been improv.
Jason Momoa is one of the sexiest motherfuckers in existence. Okay, I acknowledge that. All right, that dude is like,
will you sniff his sweater?
Obscenely good looking. He won the genetic lottery. All right, and I like when he's on screen. I like looking at the dude. Good looking guy, you know. And I honestly sometimes I like when he says things because it comes off as cool, because he's fucking Jason Momoa and he looks cool doing it. All right, and I would sniff the sweater too, but it didn't need to be there in this.
But
in
it
this
did.
scene.
We could all live vicariously
Through her.
in that moment through her.
Yeah. It smells like sea salt and musk.
It's
Yes.
the new Old Spice Aquaman line coming out this summer.
And I
Check
love
your local grocery store.
And I love how it's very obvious that like the stylist, whoever did his hair, just used a bunch of sea salt spray to get his hair to look like
Yes. It's accurate. They just had him surf for a couple hours every morning and then come in and do
that.
the
He probably,
shoots.
honestly, he probably did it himself. Yeah, I went surfing every morning before, we started shooting to make sure my hair looked good for the scenes I'm in, because I'm Jason Momoa and I'm a badass, and I'm gonna go ride my motorcycle now. Yeah.
So I have to
Anyway.
ask you two, how do you feel about Darkseid in this movie?
He's still a Thanos knockoff. as far as I'm concerned. I know that there's more lore and probably could have been better communicated how he is different from Thanos. But at this time, with everything Marvel still fresh in the mind, it's hard not to be like, very tall, bald man with a prominent chin taking over worlds. I've seen this before. And I'm
there's
not
something
impressed.
about bald dudes with big chins that are evil, I guess.
Sorry,
I don't
Josh
know.
Brolin.
Bezos.
Like, I think Robert, you actually said it, that they kind of shot themselves in the foot building up Darkseid in the marketing and like mentioning that, because it probably would have been a much better payoff to sort of just let people view it in the movie and be like, oh, there's a thing in here that's like Darkseid's in this movie. And it also really sucks because now we're expecting, is there going to be a confrontation with Darkseid? And there really isn't one. He like says some stuff and then it just kind of ends. And knowing that we're not going to probably get another one of these movies, I kind of want to see Superman punch Darkseid in the face.
Yeah, and that is what bothered me a lot with this movie, is that had there been no marketing showing off Darkseid, I feel like each moment you see Darkseid would feel like seeing Thanos during the end credits of some of the Marvel movies, right? Because it'd be like a little Easter egg where it's like, for the layman, who's that purple intimidating guy? In the same way here, it'd be like, oh, that dude, like Steppenwolf works for that guy, so that guy's got to be like a real badass, but I wonder who he is.
And the Steppenwolf in his own right was a great villain this time around. Like, I don't know how you feel about it, Colin, but I thought, he had a very clear motive. He was doing his thing and he was pretty intimidating, and I liked his armor. I liked that was his head and not just ornamentation. The headdress, it was his head, and we found that out very viscerally. Yeah, that was part of his anatomy.
When he gets his horn cut off, I was expecting him to like lean his head lopsided because it's like throwing the weight of his head off like crazy. But I mean, I thought he was fine. Like, he's like the subservient minion of Darkseid, and he's doing it to appease his master, basic villain shit, whatever.
Retribution.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, that's fine, sure. And apparently, he got a lot less backstory in the original.
Super
and he
less.
was just kind of just a bad guy. And I did kind of like the scene where he was like taking out all the Amazonians, even though there was so much goddamn CG in that scene that it was distracting for me. But like, I mean, it was cool how they were basically playing, doing a relay race with the mother box, and basically Steppenwolf was like, I'm gonna get you, and
my mouth was open that entire scene. Like, that was, especially after they sink they're like, seal it, and then they like literally yeet the whole temple into the sea. And it's like, because y'all had us thinking in the Whedon cut that it's like they had a couple stone walls to keep in this ancient, unknowable technology. It's like, give the Amazons more credit. They had a better plan in mind, and it was yeeting the entire temple into the sea, which is a pretty good plan.
I mean, it's better than the human plan.
That then just shows how powerful Steppenwolf is.
So my question is, why knock down all the walls and put the walls up if you're just going to knock the whole goddamn thing into the sea anyway? What's the point? It's just going to crumble into the sea.
So it don't leak out.
Extra layers.
There's no obvious exit.
Wait, is the whole structure... Wait, didn't the structure crumble into the sea, or am I remembering this wrong?
I mean, like the landmass under it crumbled into the sea.
But like the temple itself looked like it was still...
Oh, so they're like trying to lock it in and do like a... And then, yeah. Okay.
I mean, Steppenwolf still broke out.
He still got in, so it was pointless anyway.
We boom tubed it.
Which really sucks, because we see the sacrifices that happened. There was a ton of people still in there fighting when they sealed it, and then it crumbled into the sea. That everything that happened with the Amazonians, I was just like, yes.
Yeah, it was a lot of ancient lamentation.
Ancient lamentations.
At least, so we weren't tired of it by that point in the movie, but by the the fucking 12th time it happens, when anytime Wonder Woman does literally anything.
I do think those scenes of I was about to say Thanos, of Steppenwolf collecting the Infinity Stones. Those scenes
Yes.
felt more earned and got more room to breathe in this movie, where it did feel like he's a legitimate threat. And that's what I liked about Steppenwolf in this movie, is that you see those scenes with him talking to Desaad and Daddy and saying, hey, can I come back home, Dad? And Dad's like, no, keep conquering worlds. He's like, okay, Dad. So he keeps collecting the Infinity Stones. So you can tell he's afraid of something, right? Like there's something that scares him, which is Darkseid. But he fucking wrecks people in this movie. He destroys a temple full of Amazonians, literally one of the most powerful warriors on Earth. And he fucking wrecks Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Batman, Aquaman, but not Superman.
Nope.
And that to me was like this really cool, it felt like Dragon Ball anime power curve shit, right? Like Frieza's beating the shit out of everyone. Even Vegeta can't stop him. Even base form Goku can't stop him. But then Goku goes Super Saiyan. And then Frieza's a little piece of baby shit, right? That's what Steppenwolf felt like here, right? Like he's scary, intimidating, and there's a bigger thing above him that's even scarier. But then when Superman arrives, he's garbage. He's nothing. Superman just beats the fuck out of him.
Yeah, and then I do like the scene though where like Darkseid is like in the portal and they like throw like Steppenwolf gets thrown at the portal. I think Superman does it, and then Wonder Woman comes in with the fucking decapitation. And he's
fatality.
Like, here, take your fucking leftovers. Just take your little bitch back.
And then Darkseid just crushes his head. Just steps on it.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, we're doing this old school. Get in the ship.
The ending fight was where Superman shows up, especially. It was probably my favorite part of the movie if I had one, you know? And that was like, it didn't save the movie for me by any means, but it was like, okay, that was pretty cool. Like I acknowledge. And of course, the scene where the explosion happens and then Flash saves the day was pretty cool. You know, he turns back time and.
Yeah, that was really pretty to look at too. I think that was probably the better
cool.
CG moments.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you guys, what did you think about Barry Allen, super awkward teenager, early 20s?
I liked him.
What'd you think about that kid?
I like, I always forget the actor's name.
Ezra Miller?
Ezra Miller. Yeah, I like him because I actually, not that long ago, watched The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and he's fantastic in that. So I like Ezra Miller. And I liked his jokes. It was kind of a little bit of a relief from the dark and depressing fucking movie that this was. Even though it's like, it was a little ham-fisted sometimes, but I heard it was also worse in the Joss Whedon version. And the parts with his dad weren't too bad either. I kind of liked it. Like his dad's like, no, like don't be a fuck up. Just like go do something with your life, please. Yeah.
Which his dad was entirely absent from the previous cut.
Yeah, you didn't even get why Barry was doing anything.
Yeah, but the scene with the car wreck was way too fucking long, dude. Like that.
But the wieners.
We sat on that
the wieners
scene
in the
for
air.
so fucking long. Like
wieners in the air.
And not to mention the girl.
And then
who
we
was all
save one for later.
Yeah, the
For the
girl who was all
nuts.
CG'd up was like looked so nonplussed that she was just in a major fucking car wreck.
She's special.
Yeah,
It's Iris.
I don't know. It's just the whole scene was just like, oh my god, we've been here for 5 minutes, please.
Yeah. I don't know. I liked Barry in this movie. I mean, I liked him in the original too. He was probably one of my favorites because he's the Flash, you know, and he plays the Flash really well. I think that. I mean, he's a little more like awkward, like you said, Daily, than other Flash incarnations. Who tends to be a little more like cocky, funny type of guy.
Right.
But I think Ezra Miller did a fantastic job in here, and I love that one of my favorite scenes from the original cut showed up here. It's that scene where Superman first comes back to life. All the heroes are fighting him. Obviously, they can't do shit to him because he's Superman, right? And then Flash is like, it's okay. I'm the fastest thing in the universe. I can go faster than the speed of light. So I'm just going to like run at him from the side. And then Henry Cavill's eyes just like dart over. And then it's like, oh, he's fucked, you know? And like, that was really cool.
That was so cool. Like that was a goosebump moment. I really liked the moment, and I think it's a good character study for like who Barry is. Like when he goes into his like his own Flash cave, not Bat cave, and it's like, hey, I'm Bruce Wayne, and he's like, dude, am I supposed to know like who that
he's like,
is?
why are you
And
saying
then
that like I'm supposed to know who you are?
And then when he throws the Batarang, he's like, wait a minute, you're Batman. Can I keep this?
Can I keep this?
It was just like a very good, like, in the original film, that was like the best explanation for like who he is as a character. Whereas in this one, it builds on that quirkiness that isn't like down your throat quirkiness. It's a good amount of quirk.
Yeah, I am curious to see how, because they're the standalone Flash movie's in production right now, right? So,
maybe.
No?
I feel like the DCEU is just weirdly in flux.
There's like weird stuff happening with like Ezra Miller and like I don't know what's happening.
I think
a lot of stuff is happening.
The only thing I'm confident in is the Robert Pattinson Batman, which is completely divorced from any of this Justice League Batman.
I wonder if that's going to be in the Joaquin Phoenix Joker-verse thing.
I don't know if that's going to be a verse either.
I don't know
if that's going to be in this. I don't fucking DC. What are you doing? What are you doing? Anyway,
if everyone had their way and like this was the OG and we continued from now at this point, if this Justice League had come out in 2017, we would be talking about, hey, they mentioned Ryan Choi in the movie, and he's Adam from the Vine. Get it?
I get it.
But yeah, you get it. And they were working on the laser, and the lasers, it's all connected. It's all coming together, guys.
Except for not anymore.
Yeah,
not anymore.
Well, my point is, I hope the Flash movie gets made because he was definitely the more fun character in this movie, and I hope the Flash movie is good if it does get made. I think that there's potential there.
That's what I said about Aquaman.
Yeah. Also, the funny thought just popped into my head. You guys know how like Spider-Man 3 is coming out, or the third Spider-Man Tom Holland movie is coming out,
Spider-Man,
and it's going to be multiverse. What if they did that with Batman and they got like Michael Keaton and like
George Clooney,
and who was the other 80s who was the other 90s Batman? Oh God.
They resurrect Adam West.
And Adam
Christian Bale.
And then
Necromancy.
Christian Bale. They get all the Batmans together and they make that'd be wild. That'd be a fucking batshit crazy movie.
And that's the name of it. Batman, batshit crazy.
Batshit crazy. I mean, with how edgy
Call
this is.
Warner Brothers, Colin. You need to tell them.
It's gonna bother me. I'm gonna have to look who played Batman.
This podcast is sponsored by Google.
Ben Affleck.
Bruh, can you imagine?
Dude, they got to get Kevin Conroy in there. Val Kilmer.
So while I think it's a good time for us now to start debriefing, kind of, I feel like we've said a lot, about the movie. Anyone have any like big final thoughts they need to get off their chest about their favorite characters or scenes or whatever?
So, like, while I don't think this is a terrible movie, there were a handful of scenes that I actually did enjoy. I think for the most part, like I won't be coming back to this movie. This is not for me. Like, I'm glad that fans of this movie got their due diligence and it was done justice. That was the pun I was looking for.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah. And I'm happy for them. And I hope it gets a continuation, or they at least do it again and they do it much better, because I think DC deserves to have good movies. They deserve to have a good cinematic universe. You know what I'm saying? A good DC movie can be done. Christian Bale Batman's movies were good. The Joker was good. It's possible. It wasn't Shazam okay? Didn't people like that?
I loved Shazam. I had a good time with Shazam.
Yeah, that's so. It can be done. Just fucking.
It can be done.
The time. Set it up, man. Do the thing. Do it right.
Get your own Kevin Feige.
Yeah.
Yeah. I again, yeah. There's people that are passionate about it, about the stories, and those are the people that you need to hire. I will say my last, I guess, gripe is the extended shot of like when Lois was getting her reporter's badge out of her drawer and there was a box for a pregnancy test.
What the hell was
like,
that?
What the hell was that? Okay, I get it. It's like, you know, she's grieving. She was building a life with Clark Kent and da-da-da. There's too many implications. There's too many implications.
Ben Affleck at the end of the movie tells Superman, hey, congratulations.
Yeah, but it was like, was that congratulations for the marriage? Congratulations for getting the house back? Congratulations for the baby? Congratulations for, hey, you're back to life. How's that feel?
Because she hadn't agreed to marry him until like posthumously like agreed to marry Superman, Clark. But there's too many implications about like if they had a kid within this cinematic universe. Like that's like, can Kryptonians and humans procreate?
Yep.
Are we too different?
Oh yeah, that happens.
But we can.
Superboy.
And if we can, what are those powers going to be like? There's too much. And it was also just very ham-fisted as a whole.
I mean, y'all know about the Snyder secret cuts, right? Right? Like he has apparently had scripts written out for what the future of the Justice League would look like, and it'd be like Clark's and Lois's kid grows up to be Batman or something.
What?
It's
Superman's son was going to be the future Batman.
Yeah, it's
in the
weird.
future Justice League movie.
Yeah, which we don't even know is going to happen. So whatever.
Yeah, it's so funny because I'm looking at my waveform for this recording and it just gets progressively louder as I rant louder and louder.
Angrier and angrier.
More ancient lamentations.
Yeah.
Oh God,
I don't know.
Sorry to post Robert.
My final thoughts here are with, I liked it. I do wish this is what came out in theaters because I feel like it would have drastically altered what the DC cinematic universe could have been. Now this just feels like too much too late in that, we could finally imagine the future of the Snyderverse, but I don't think we're ever going to see it, which is sad. I would have loved to see Henry Cavill beat up CGI Dark Thanos. That would have been really cool to watch because, Darkseid's one of he is literally a Thanos of the universe. He's one of the Justice League's biggest enemies because he can beat the shit out of Superman, right? Yeah. So that would have been nice. But I also, when I take off my DC blinders, if I think about what would I rather watch again, would I rather watch the Snyder Cut or Infinity War and Endgame back to back? I think 9 times out of 10, it's going to be Infinity War and Endgame back to back because...
Oh, no question. Same boat.
Yeah, those are just better made movies. They feel more fun. They have a lot more engaging moments.
They have even Chris Evans with a beard.
Yeah, GG, right? I mean, those characters I don't like as much as I do the DC characters, but Infinity War and Endgame feels like a much bigger story that has a way better payoff and a resolution, as opposed to this that is creating a big story out of nothing and doesn't have a resolution, really.
Yeah. I mean, yep. I just, there's still time, man. Like, DC is not going anywhere. And I really hope in the future that they actually take the time and invest in some sort of universe and do the damn thing right.
Yeah, it baffles me. It almost seems like it's their own hubris that they're choking on. They're like, it's DC stories, it's Batman, it's Superman, we can't fail. And it's like, if you do it wrong, people are going to notice. We're not dumb. We're not that dumb. I'll say that much. We may be dumb, but not that dumb.
Yeah, and the thing is too is a lot of the stories that I've heard about. Robert's told me about stories from the comics. I've read about stories from the comics on the internet from the DC universe, and a lot of those stories actually sound much more intriguing, much more interesting, and much more grounded to me than a lot of the stories that happen in the Marvel universe. You have so much good material to work with. I mean, they've been pulling off great animated movies for years with the DC universe, and there's no excuse, man. There really isn't. There isn't.
There's clearly money. There's clearly, plenty of passionate people out there. I think it's just, I guess, executives getting
Sounds
in
like
the way.
bureaucracy.
There's bureaucracy getting in the way, and in this case, we had the moment of the passionate people, the fans, being like, actually, no, you don't know best. In this case, we know best. And I will not say that that's always the case. That is definitely not always the case.
Mhm.
But this is one of those moments that is enabled by the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I
and
think
then they're gonna make DC Studios, and then it's gonna get bought by Disney, guys, and then they're gonna happen.
I mean,
Mouse owns all.
to me, the biggest feather in this movie's cap is that it feels like a passion project. And that is hard for me to fault. You know, that I do have my problems with the Snyder Cut, but it at least feels like his unadulterated vision. You know, this is the biggest, longest uncut Zack Snyder we've ever seen. And, you know, there is something kind of nice about that, you know?
Yeah. I can respect that. But even that, like, it could have been reeled in a little bit, but you know what? People got the thing that they wanted, and that's great. I think, if anything, the takeaway is, like, if the fan base is loud enough, if the internet wants it enough, if people are willing to see it, I mean, the fact that people are talking about, like, I don't remember seeing people talk about a movie this fucking much on Twitter or, like, across the internet since Avengers happened.
Yeah.
You
that's
know,
true.
like, it's taken over my feeds completely over the past, like, 3 or 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Even if it isn't necessarily all positive, like, oh my God, 4:3 aspect ratio. Oh my God, this scene, that scene. It doesn't matter. It's press. It's catching on. People fucking care. And it's like, it's a story that people made happen. It's something that people got together and, like, we want this to happen because, like, you know, we shouldn't be getting shafted over this movie. We deserve to see, like, the original vision. And that's what happened. And that's great.
Yep.
Here we are.
Here we are. It's the Justice League, and this is it. This is all we're getting. I don't know. I think with DC, you know, if they're gonna keep going down the route of, like, making movies that are disconnected from one another, like Joker, the Batman, right? I kind of hope they keep doing that and just nailing the stories with it, like the self-contained stories within themselves, because we are at the point, I would say, where most people know Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, probably, right? Diminishing returns the further out you go from those properties, but people know them. We don't need to see another Batman origin story. We don't need to see another how did Batman and Joker meet, right?
I'm tired of watching Martha Wayne get shot and the pearls flying. I can't tell you how many different formats I've seen that in.
Exactly. So now I think this is a good time for the DC cinematic universe to just take a step back and just start making self-contained films. Make a live action version of Justice League Doom or Justice League Dark Knights. You know, that would be really rad to see come to life. Because I think at this point, spoilers for Dark Knights, there's a version of Batman who becomes the Joker, and he becomes the Batman who laughs, and it's real badass. And I think most average people nowadays would see that character design and kind of be able to make the connection of, oh, that's like a Batman and Joker, like, together as one. Like, it wouldn't be so confusing and need, like, 20 movies of setup. Like, they could just do it in that movie, make a cool movie, and then move on to another story. You know, like Superman Red Son or Injustice, right?
Yes. That is a super interesting storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And especially now, it'd be interesting to be explored.
Yeah. So, who knows? We'll see what the future looks like. But for now, I think we would need to wrap up our 8 hours. Wow, look at that.
8 hours.
8 hours.
We've been here for, we watched
Honestly,
the movie all together and then, talked.
I think we did a pretty good job at, like, not making this super long-winded, because there was tons more, I'm sure, in the movie to talk about, but I think we stayed conservative there. We definitely reined it in.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Colin, this was just part one.
God.
There's a part two.
There's 6 other parts.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, listen, if you guys want a full fucking breakdown of this goddamn movie, I mean, over at Kind of Funny, Greg Miller and all their crew, 2 hours and 45 minutes, and that's just part 1, okay, of their spoiler cast. So if you're looking for, like, analysis, there you go.
Yeah. So we hope you enjoyed our little show here. Thank you so much for listening to us. And if you have any thoughts about the Justice League Snyder Cut that that you'd want us to read, or if you have questions about our thoughts, you can email those to everythinginpod@gmail.com or tweet at us at everythinginpod. Next week, we're going to be talking about NFTs, non-fungible tokens, unless something crazy happens, but that's the plan. So if you have thoughts about NFTs as well, feel free to shoot those our way. We'd be very interested to see what you guys think about whatever the fuck NFTs are.
Yeah, please. Like,
This is the first time I've heard what it actually stands for.
Listen, I've heard like 3 or 4 explanations now as to what the fuck they are, and I still don't understand. So please write in. Please keep trying. I don't want to feel stupid.
Mm-hmm. I mean, don't worry. We'll do the research. Like now, Robert, I mean, I know a bit, but I'm going to do more research, and so will the other two. So we're not just going to be like an hour.
We're not going into it blind.
I'm going to make my monkey brain try to understand what this confounded technology these kids are talking about.
Controversial. People have different opinions. We want to know yours.
Yeah. So shoot them to us. Links down in the description. And honestly, it's been really, really nice. We were talking about this before we recorded, so I'm going to out you two. We were talking about how awesome it is that we're seeing, these people send in their thoughts, because, what we're doing is having a conversation, but we love that you, the listener, are also getting in on the conversation with us, and I think it's kind of rad. So thank you for sending in your thoughts. Please keep doing that, because, it puts a little smile on our faces.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And by the way, we'll be
smile.
producing the next podcast as an NFT. So we'll be putting that up on our merch store, and you could actually own an episode of the podcast, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally kidding. Can we do that? How do we do that? I don't know how to, but.
Oh, I already know how to do that. I mean, part 2 through 6 of our Justice League Spoiler cast are going to be NFTs.
Right.
Well, you'll need an NFT to access them, I should say.
Yeah, I'm so confused.
Mm-hmm. To own them, even though we're gonna own it, but
even though apparently people can just buy, like somebody bought Jack's from Twitter's tweet, I guess, and paid for real money for that, millions of dollars
to own the tweet.
Real money
that Jack
they
Dorsey
own a digital
owns.
thing.
We'll talk about it next week. Whatever. So yeah, this has been Everything in Poderation. Thank you again so much for listening, and we hope you enjoyed. And we'll be back next week. And until then, where's Martha?
What are you doing?
I don't know. That was unintelligible.